Did you know that one single movement you make every day, something so ordinary, so innocent, could quietly raise your risk of a stroke overnight? No warning, no pain, no second chance. You go to bed feeling fine, and by morning your words are slurred, your balance is gone, or one side of your body won't move. As a brain doctor, I've seen it happen to countless older adults across America. Not from smoking, not from junk food, but from movements they believed were safe. Stretching the wrong way, standing up too quickly, holding their breath, or even sitting comfortably for too long. These small, everyday actions can quietly disturb blood flow, spike pressure in the brain, and yes, it triggers strokes, it forms blood clots, and it can change your life in a single heartbeat. The scariest part? Most people never see it coming. That's why in this video, I'm going to reveal the 7 daily movements that may be silently putting your brain at risk and show you exactly how to protect yourself before it's too late. Because what you don't know about your body's smallest habits could be the very thing that steals your tomorrow. Before we dive in, if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you hit that button and turn on the bell so you never miss another health tip made just for you. If you enjoy this video, type 1 in the comments. If not, type 0 to let me know how I can make better content for you. 1. Getting up too fast in the morning. The silent shock that can stop the brain cold. If you're over 60, this might be one of the most dangerous moments of your entire day. The few seconds after you open your eyes and swing your legs out of bed, you might not think twice about it. You've been doing it your whole life. But as a brain doctor, I can tell you, those seconds can mean the difference between waking up healthy or waking up in the ER unable to move or speak. When you're young, your body adjusts quickly to position changes. Your heart pumps stronger, your arteries are flexible, and your brain instantly gets the blood it needs. But with age, that reflex slows down. Your vessels stiffen, your heart takes longer to respond, and your brain, that delicate oxygen-hungry organ, becomes vulnerable to even brief drops in blood flow. So when you rise too quickly in the morning, gravity pulls blood toward your legs and away from your brain. In medical terms, it's called orthostatic hypotension, and it's far more common in older adults than most realize. You might feel dizzy for a second, or you might not feel anything at all. But inside your skull, that sudden rush can cause a temporary oxygen shortage. For some, that's all it takes to trigger chaos. Here's how it happens. The drop in blood flow causes the small arteries feeding your brain to constrict sharply. In automatic response to pressure change, that constriction can damage fragile vessel walls already weakened by years of high blood pressure, diabetes, or cholesterol buildup. Tiny cracks form, and the body, always trying to repair, responds by forming microclots, little patches meant to heal the vessel lining. But sometimes those clots break loose. They travel upward, and when they reach a narrow artery inside the brain, they block it completely. In just seconds, parts of the brain go dark. Speech slurs, balance disappears, one side of the body falls silent. This is how it triggers strokes, not through trauma or diet, but through a movement so ordinary it feels impossible to fear. I'll never forget one of my patients, Mr. Harold Benson, 76, from Indiana. A retired mechanic, healthy, alert, proud of his independence. One morning, he woke up, stood up fast to answer the phone, and collapsed. His wife found him on the floor, his right arm limp, his mouth drooping. At the hospital, scans showed a small clot in the left side of his brain, the kind caused not by blockage from cholesterol, but by a sudden pressure shift in a fragment of clot that had formed in an already stressed vessel. He hadn't done anything wrong. He simply moved too quickly for his aging circulation to handle. This kind of stroke doesn't always kill, but it can steal something more precious: your independence, the ability to walk, speak, drive, or hold your grandchild safely. And what's terrifying is how silent it is. There's no warning sign. You go to bed fine. You wake up dizzy. And in that brief moment between lying and standing, your brain loses its balance. The fix sounds simple, and it is. Sit up first, move your legs gently, take 3 slow breaths. Give your heart a chance to catch up before you stand. These 30 seconds could save your life, your mind, your memories. But as dangerous as mornings can be, they're not the only hidden threat waiting in your daily routine. Because the next movement, one that happens behind a closed bathroom door, may be putting even more deadly pressure on your brain than you ever imagined. If you're still watching and finding these insights helpful, please comment number 1 below to let me know you're with me. Now let's move on to point number 2. 2. Straining in the bathroom. The silent pressure nobody talks about. If you're over 60, I want you to listen to this one carefully, because it's something most people are too embarrassed to talk about, yet it's one of the most common ways older adults unknowingly trigger a stroke right in their own bathroom. Every morning across America, millions of seniors sit down to relieve themselves, pushing hard to get things moving. It feels normal, harmless. Just another part of aging. But inside your body, something far more dangerous is happening. When you strain, you're not just forcing your bowels, you're forcing your heart, your blood vessels, and your brain to endure a sudden surge of internal pressure that can change everything in a matter of seconds. Here's what happens. When you push hard, your chest and abdomen tighten. You hold your breath, your diaphragm locks, and your heart has to fight against the pressure inside your chest, a phenomenon doctors call the Valsalva maneuver. For a few moments, blood can't flow easily from your heart to your brain. Then, when you finally exhale or release that strain, a rebound occurs. Blood rushes back suddenly, surging through arteries that have already been stretched to their limits. In younger people, vessels recover quickly. But in older adults, especially those with stiffened arteries, high blood pressure, or plaque buildup, that surge can be catastrophic. The rapid pressure shift can tear delicate vessel linings deep inside the brain. When that happens, the body's repair system jumps into action, forming blood clots to seal the damaged area. But those clots don't always stay where they belong. They can break loose, drift through the bloodstream, and lodge themselves in a critical artery. Within seconds, that small clot can trigger a stroke, cutting off oxygen to a part of the brain that controls speech, balance, or movement. I've seen it too many times in my career. One of my patients, Mrs. Lillian Marks, 81, from Kansas, had always been active, independent, and proud of her clean diet. But she'd been struggling with constipation for years, something she brushed off as normal for her age. One morning, she strained harder than usual. Minutes later, she felt dizzy, her vision blurred, and when she tried to call for help, no words came out. She had suffered a small ischemic stroke right there in her bathroom. Her blood pressure at admission was 220 over 110, a dangerous spike caused by the physical force of straining. That sudden surge burst a fragile artery in her brain, forming a clot that stole her speech for weeks. This isn't rare. Studies have shown that stroke risk rises sharply during activities that increase chest and neck pressure, straining, heavy lifting, even holding your breath. The bathroom for many seniors is the most private yet most perilous room in the house. What feels like a minor inconvenience, a slow bowel movement, can turn into a life-threatening event when mixed with dehydration, medications, or years of vascular wear and tear. You can prevent this. Stay hydrated. Add fiber-rich foods like oats, prunes, and vegetables. Don't ignore the urge to go. Holding it in makes things worse.
And if you find yourself pushing, stop. Take a break. Breathe. No one ever tells you this, but forcing your body that way isn't strength, it's risk. Your brain shouldn't have to pay the price for what your bowels can't do alone. Because sometimes it's not what you eat that puts your brain in danger, it's how you move while doing the simplest things. And if straining in the bathroom can silently raise your stroke risk, wait until you hear what happens when you lift something heavy, thinking it's just a quick chore. The next one might shock you even more.
3. Lifting heavy objects suddenly. The weekend warrior mistake that breaks the brain's balance. If you're over 60, this one might hit close to home. Maybe it's a box of winter clothes in the garage. Maybe it's the groceries, a chair, or even your grandchild reaching up for a hug. You bend down, tighten your back, hold your breath, and lift, thinking it's harmless, just a normal part of life. But that single movement, that burst of pressure and strain, could be all it takes to set off a chain reaction inside your body that ends with a blood clot, a blocked artery, and a stroke that changes your life forever. I've treated far too many patients who never saw it coming. They weren't reckless. They weren't careless. They were proud, independent, and determined to do things themselves. But what they didn't realize is that as we age, the simple act of lifting, something our bodies once handled with ease, becomes a stress test on the heart, blood vessels, and brain. Here's what really happens when you lift something heavy. The moment you bend, your muscles tense and your blood pressure rises sharply. If you hold your breath, something most people do without realizing, that pressure doubles the arteries in your neck and brain, already less elastic from decades of wear, suddenly face a surge strong enough to stretch or even damage their inner lining. And when those microscopic tears occur, the body rushes to repair them, forming tiny blood clots to seal the wound. But those clots don't always stay put. They can drift upward, carried by your own blood flow, until one lodges in a narrow vessel inside your brain. In an instant, it triggers a stroke. It's quick, it's silent, and it often happens at home, in the yard, the basement, or the kitchen. One of my patients, Mr. Raymond Holt, 74 from Ohio, was the kind of man who refused to bother anyone for help. He'd been moving a few storage boxes in his garage when he felt a brief wave of dizziness, then nothing. A few minutes later, his wife found him slumped against the wall, one arm hanging lifeless. At the hospital, the CT scan confirmed it. A small clot had blocked blood flow to part of his brain's motor cortex. The doctors were able to dissolve it, but his right side never fully recovered. All because of one lift, one held breath, one surge his blood vessels couldn't handle. Here's the reality. After 60, your vascular system becomes fragile. High blood pressure, cholesterol, diabetes. They all weaken the walls of your arteries. Add one sharp rise in pressure, one burst of strain, and you've built the perfect conditions for a vessel to tear or a clot to form. It's not about how strong you feel, it's about how stable your circulation really is. So before you lift, pause. Test the weight. Bend your knees, not your back. Keep the object close to your body, and above all, breathe. Exhale as you lift. Inhale as you lower. Never hold your breath. That simple act, remembering to breathe, can mean the difference between finishing your task and fighting for your life. Because the truth is, it's not just what you lift that's dangerous, it's how your body reacts afterward. And if you think lifting is risky, wait until you learn what happens when you go to sleep with your head too low. What your pillow is doing to your brain overnight might be even more alarming. If you're still watching and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 1 below to let me know you're here. Now let's keep going with point number 4. 4. Sleeping with your head too low.
the nighttime trap that strangles the brain in silence. If you're over 60, you probably treasure a good night's sleep, that feeling of lying down, closing your eyes, and letting the day fade away. But what if I told you that the very way you rest your head at night could be silently starving your brain of oxygen, tightening your blood vessels, and setting the stage for a stroke while you sleep? Most people never think twice about how they position their head. Maybe you prefer a flat pillow because it feels easier on your neck, or you've slept that way for years. But for aging adults, especially those with high blood pressure, heart problems, or sleep apnea, sleeping too flat can become a silent killer. What feels comfortable can actually create the perfect conditions for blood to pool, pressure to build, and clots to form in the brain. Here's what happens. When your head lies flat, gravity can't help your blood drain smoothly from the brain back to the heart. This leads to higher pressure in the small, delicate vessels that feed your brain tissue. For young, healthy arteries, that pressure isn't a problem. They can stretch and adjust. But for older adults, those vessels are stiffer, narrower, and far more fragile. As the hours pass through the night, the pressure slowly builds, squeezing the vessel walls like a balloon filled too tight. Meanwhile, oxygen levels drop, especially if you snore or have mild sleep apnea. Your brain's response? It tightens arteries to protect itself, but that only makes things worse. The restricted flow slows down circulation, and in that sluggish state, it forms blood clots. Tiny ones at first, but enough to block critical pathways by morning. I once treated Mrs. Clara Jensen, 79, from North Carolina, a retired choir director who'd always prided herself on her health. Every night, she slept nearly flat, just one thin pillow. One morning, she woke up dizzy and disoriented, her speech slurred. Her daughter rushed her to the ER, and scans revealed a small ischemic stroke near the brainstem, the part of the brain that controls balance and coordination. Overnight, her blood oxygen levels had dropped, and her vessels, under constant pressure from lying flat, had tightened to the point where a small clot formed and lodged deep inside. She survived, but her balance never fully returned. The truth is, the brain depends on subtle circulation changes during sleep. Gentle waves of blood flow that wash out toxins and restore function. But if your head is too low, those waves slow down. Waste products build up, oxygen drops, and blood thickens, creating a perfect storm for clots and microbleeds. You may not notice anything. You'll wake up feeling just a little more tired, a little foggier, maybe with a dull headache. But each night like that chips away at your brain's resilience. In one morning, it might not recover. The fix isn't complicated, but it is life-changing. Elevate your head slightly, not so high that it bends your neck, but just enough to allow smooth drainage. A wedge pillow or an adjustable bed can make all the difference. Keep your airway open, your oxygen steady, and your blood flowing freely. Your brain needs calm, stable circulation to rest, not silent pressure building hour after hour. And if you think the danger ends when you wake up, think again. Because what you do during the day, even something as simple as holding your breath while bending down or reaching for something, might be putting the same deadly pressure on your brain that builds while you sleep. What I'm about to explain next could change how you move forever. 5. Holding your breath during effort. The invisible stroke. Trigger hiding in plain sight. If you're over 60, there's a movement you might be doing dozens of times a day without realizing it. Tying your shoes, lifting a bag of groceries, bending to pick something up, even reaching for the remote under the couch. It seems harmless, but the moment you strain and hold your breath, even for just a few seconds, your body enters a dangerous state that can quietly damage your blood vessels, thicken your blood, and trigger a stroke before you ever feel a thing. It's so subtle that most people don't even notice they're doing it. It's called the Valsalva maneuver, the instinctive act of closing your throat and tightening your chest when you exert force. Younger people can get away with it because their arteries are elastic and their heart's strong enough to handle the sudden surge in pressure. But for older adults, it's a silent killer. The aging heart doesn't pump as quickly, the vessels in the neck and brain lose their flexibility, and the body's pressure control system slows down. When you hold your breath during effort, everything inside your chest tightens. The diaphragm pushes upward, squeezing your heart and trapping blood in your lungs. Blood flow to your brain slows sharply, depriving your neurons of oxygen. Then, when you finally release that breath, blood rushes back at full force, a sudden flood against fragile vessel walls. This surge stretches, irritates, and sometimes even tears the lining of small arteries in your brain. The body responds instantly by forming blood clots to patch the damage. But those clots don't always stay in place. They drift, they move, and when they lodge in a narrowed artery, it triggers a stroke. I'll never forget Mr. Daniel Rhodes, 81, from Michigan, a retired firefighter, proud and disciplined. He liked to stay active, doing small chores around the house to keep busy. One afternoon, while fixing a loose screw in his deck railing, he crouched down, twisted, and held his breath as he forced the screwdriver tight. Moments later, he felt dizzy and weak. By the time his wife called 911, he couldn't lift his right arm. The CT scan revealed a small clot blocking blood flow to his left motor cortex. No trauma, no fall, just one brief act of holding his breath under pressure. That tiny moment changed the rest of his life. This isn't rare. Studies show that brief spikes in chest pressure, the kind that happen during straining, heavy lifting, or even coughing too hard, can raise blood pressure in the brain by 30 to 40%. In an older person with already stiff arteries, that's enough to rupture or block delicate blood vessels. Over time, repeating this behavior can cause small areas of damage in the brain's white matter, leading to memory loss, imbalance, and increased stroke risk. The scary part is that you don't have to be lifting weights to be at risk. I've seen patients who triggered this reaction simply tightening a jar lid, pulling weeds, or reaching to move a heavy pillow. The combination of effort, tension, and breath holding is all it takes. The solution sounds simple, but it requires mindfulness. The next time you lift, bend, or strain, remind yourself, breathe through the effort, exhale as you lift, inhale as you relax. Let your body release the pressure instead of trapping it. This gentle rhythm keeps blood flowing smoothly, prevents sudden surges, and protects your brain from that hidden storm of pressure. Remember, your breath is your body's pressure valve. When you hold it, you trap energy that has nowhere to go, and it's your brain that ends up paying the price. A single deep breath can be the difference between balance and collapse, between independence and a hospital bed. You've spent your whole life breathing without thinking. Now, in your later years, it's time to think before you hold your breath, because one small mistake, one trapped breath, can change everything. And if that scares you, it should. But what's even more alarming is that some of the movements we've been told to do for health, gentle neck stretches, morning rotations, loosening up the shoulders, might actually be putting deadly strain on the arteries that feed your brain. The next one is one of the most misunderstood healthy habits I see in seniors every day. 6. Neck rolling and sudden twisting. The gentle stretch that can tear your brain's lifeline.
If you're over 60, you've probably been told to keep your neck loose. Maybe your physical therapist or a fitness video encouraged you to do slow neck rolls each morning to relieve stiffness, ease tension, or prevent pain. It seems harmless, even relaxing. But what if I told you that this gentle motion could be one of the most dangerous movements you make? What if that simple stretch, something meant to help, could silently tear the arteries that feed your brain, form blood clots, and in an instant, trigger a stroke that changes your life forever? As a brain doctor, I've seen it happen more than once, and it's always heartbreaking because it feels so unfair. These aren't reckless people. They're careful, health conscious. Doing what they believe keeps them young and mobile. But the aging body doesn't forgive the same way it used to. The vessels that supply your brain, especially the vertebral arteries that run through the back of your neck, are delicate, narrow, and winding. In youth, they're flexible, bending easily as you turn your head. But over time, they stiffen. The protective lining inside them thins, and small deposits of calcium make them fragile, almost like old garden hoses that can crack under pressure. Now imagine what happens when you tilt your head back or roll it in a full circle. Those arteries stretch and twist inside the small bones of your neck. Every degree of rotation increases tension. For a young adult, it's fine. But in someone over 60, that motion can pull so sharply that it causes a small tear in the artery wall, what we call a dissection. When that happens, blood seeps into the tear and starts to pool between the vessel layers, forming a clot. That clot can grow overnight or break loose within minutes. When it travels upward and reaches your brain, it triggers a stroke, sudden, devastating, and often without warning. I'll never forget Mrs. Gloria Henley, 72, from California, a retired piano teacher who loved her morning stretches. Every day she'd follow a routine she learned online: slow arm circles, shoulder rolls, and 3 full neck rotations to loosen up. One morning, during her third roll, she felt a sharp pain behind her ear, followed by dizziness. Within seconds, she couldn't stand. Her speech slurred. At the hospital, scans revealed a vertebral artery dissection, a tear in one of the 2 arteries that supply the back of the brain. A small clot had formed and lodged near her cerebellum, the area that controls balance and coordination. She survived, but her world would never be the same. It's terrifying because it feels so ordinary. You don't need to fall or hit your head. You don't need a severe injury. Just one deep roll, one quick twist to check your blind spot, one sharp tilt backward at the salon sink. And that's enough to rupture a vessel already weakened by age. I've seen it in patients after chiropractic adjustments, yoga stretches, even simple daily neck movements done too fast. And the worst part? Most people don't feel the damage when it happens. You might notice a headache that seems to crawl from the base of your skull, or dizziness that fades after a few minutes. You might shrug it off as stiffness, but inside, that tear can quietly grow, forming the clot that may change everything hours later, or while you sleep. So please, if you're over 60, protect your neck. Stop doing full circular rolls. Avoid sudden twists. Keep your movement small and slow. If you feel tightness, use gentle forward and backward tilts, shoulder shrugs, or warm compresses, not aggressive rotations. Your brain doesn't need flexibility if it comes at the cost of blood flow. It needs stability, calm, and respect for the fragile pathways that feed it. Because sometimes the smallest tear can become the biggest tragedy. And if you think twisting your neck is risky, wait until you hear about the next everyday habit, one that seems even more innocent. You might be doing it right now while sitting and reading this, and it could be quietly cutting off your circulation without you feeling a thing.
If you're still watching and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 1 below to let me know you're here. Now let's keep going with point number 7. 7. Crossing legs for long periods. The hidden circulation killer, sitting right under you. If you're over 60, this might be the habit that seems the most harmless of all. You sit down to watch your favorite show, read the newspaper, or chat on the phone, and without even thinking, you cross one leg over the other. It feels comfortable, familiar, maybe even elegant. But inside your body, while you sit there still and peaceful, something far more dangerous is happening. It's quiet, invisible, and it's one of the most underestimated triggers of strokes in older adults. I know that sounds impossible. How could something so simple be dangerous? But let me take you inside the body of an aging adult for a moment. When you cross your legs, especially at the knee, you compress the veins and arteries that run through your thighs. Those blood vessels are responsible for carrying oxygen-rich blood up to your brain and returning used blood back to your heart. In a young, healthy person, that temporary compression doesn't cause much harm. But as we get older, everything changes. Your blood becomes thicker, your circulation slows, and the valves inside your veins, the tiny flaps that keep blood moving upward, begin to weaken. When you sit for long stretches with your legs crossed, blood flow through the lower limbs becomes sluggish. It starts to pool, forming small pockets of stagnation. That's when the danger begins. Slow-moving blood is the perfect breeding ground for clots. Platelets, the little sticky cells in your blood, start gathering along the vessel walls. Bit by bit, a blood clot forms, often deep in the veins of your legs, a condition known as deep vein thrombosis, DVT. You won't feel it forming. You won't see a warning sign. It's silent, painless, and mercilessly patient. Now here's where the nightmare begins. That clot doesn't stay where it started. It can break loose, travel through your bloodstream, and move upward toward your lungs, your heart, or your brain. When it reaches the brain, it triggers a stroke, cutting off oxygen and killing brain cells within minutes. I'll never forget one of my patients, Mrs. Ruth Tanner, 85, from Colorado. A gentle, kind woman who loved knitting and chatting with her daughter on video calls. She'd sit for hours in her favorite recliner, legs crossed, a blanket over her knees. One morning, she stood up and felt a sharp pain in her calf, but brushed it off as stiffness. Later that evening, she began slurring her words and couldn't lift her right arm. In the hospital, tests revealed a clot that had traveled from her legs straight to her brain. That simple, lifelong habit, crossing her legs for hours every day, had created the perfect storm for disaster. This isn't a rare story. For seniors, every minute spent sitting motionless adds risk. Combine that with dehydration, certain medications, or heart disease, and your chance of forming clots multiplies. The scariest part is how ordinary it feels. You're not straining, not lifting, not exerting yourself. You're just resting. But for your brain, that rest can turn into a quiet ambush. So what can you do? First, uncross your legs, keep your feet flat on the floor, or use a small stool to elevate them gently. If you sit for long periods while watching TV, reading, or working on a puzzle, take a break every 20 minutes. Move your ankles in slow circles, stretch your calves, or stand and walk for a minute or two. Even small movements keep blood flowing and prevent the stagnation that leads to clotting. Drink enough water, especially during colder months when dehydration creeps up unnoticed. And if you're on blood pressure or heart medications, talk to your doctor about your circulation, because it's not just your heart that depends on it. Your body is a system of rivers, and your brain is its capital city. Every vessel that carries blood upward keeps that city alive.
When you cross your legs too long, you build a dam. And what follows isn't peace, it's pressure, stagnation, and risk. One innocent posture can slowly write the story of your own decline. But here's the good news: awareness is power. The moment you start moving, stretching, breathing, you rewrite that story. You remind your blood to flow, your brain to thrive, and your heart to keep its rhythm. And if you think sitting still is harmless, think again. Because now that you've learned how 7 everyday movements can quietly raise your stroke risk, it's time to face the most important truth of all: the final lesson about movement, aging, and the small daily choices that can either protect your brain or destroy it. What I'm about to share next might just change how you live the rest of your life. Movement should heal, not harm. After hearing about these 7 everyday movements — getting up too fast, straining in the bathroom, lifting too heavy, sleeping flat, holding your breath, twisting your neck, and crossing your legs — you might feel uneasy, even a little afraid. And that's understandable, because no one ever warned you that something so ordinary, so routine, could carry such silent danger. You've been told your whole life that movement is medicine, and it is. But at this stage of life, only the right kind of movement heals. The wrong kind can steal your balance, your memory, even your independence. As a brain doctor, I've seen the heartbreak that follows these small, preventable mistakes. People who were strong, independent, and full of life suddenly reduced to wheelchairs or hospital beds, not because of disease, but because of a moment of unawareness. A twist too far, a lift too heavy, a night of poor circulation. The human brain doesn't need much to falter. A single clot, smaller than a grain of sand, can block everything that makes you you. But here's the truth you need to hold on to: it's never too late to move differently, to move wisely. Every breath you take, every stretch you make, every time you choose to rise slowly or rest properly, you're protecting the most powerful organ in your body. Movement doesn't have to be extreme to be effective, it just needs to be mindful. The goal now isn't to prove your strength, it's to preserve your stability. So tonight, when you get ready for bed, take a moment, sit up slowly, feel your heart steady, let your breath flow naturally. Tomorrow morning, when you stand, do it with care, because those first few seconds of the day set the tone for your brain's safety. And throughout your day, listen to your body's quiet cues. It always knows before you do. The older you get, the more sacred each movement becomes. Your body is still capable of incredible things: walking, laughing, loving, creating, but only if you treat it with the respect it's earned. Because the truth is simple: your brain is always listening to what your body does. Feed it calm, feed it balance, feed it safety. And remember, you don't need to move more, you just need to move smarter. The rest of your life depends on it. These lessons are meant to inspire you to live fully and authentically. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Take a moment to reflect and share one thing you've learned and plan to apply in your own life. Let's support each other on this journey toward embracing these truths. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment with 1. If not, feel free to comment with 0. Your feedback means a lot to us. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content like this. Thank you for watching, and here's to living life on your own terms.